We're working now.
It's ready to go.
Okay. We're ready to get started. The time is 6:06. Call to order North Plains Parks and Rec Board meeting. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Lord.
Thank you. Patty Burns. Here. Evan King.
Here.
Joanna Para.
Here.
Sherry Simmons. Here. Don Weber.
Here.
Matt Lyman.
Here.
Zach Gaynor is ill tonight, and your ex officio, Counselor Russ Sheldon.
Present.
Thank you.
Okay. Has everyone had a chance to read over the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. I guess, public comments? Anyone to speak?
You're just here to hang out? I didn't receive anything prior to the meeting, so.
Okay. Go on from there to new business. Park and Recreation Board's bylaws.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Your somewhat competent IT person is about to discuss bylaws here. Check the whole screen, that's right. Sorry.
You're recording, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Should be recording. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Reed, City Finance Director. In kind of review with Dustin, who's away, recently got married, so I think he's back tomorrow, but he's missing tonight. And then Rob Drake, our interim city manager. We kind of were digging and realized that the Parks Board doesn't have bylaws yet. And that's really an important thing for you all to have, just to kind of help you successfully carry out, what City Council has directed you to do via the city code. Okay, so what we wanted to do, what I wanted to do was just, where is that? What I wanted to do was just kind of walk through some things. And this PowerPoint presentation I put together for you all, and my hope is that you're going to go through a process that's going to take probably at least a couple of meetings, okay? And I tried to put together this PowerPoint presentation so that you can go back to it as a reference to kind of guide how you go through this process. But just kind of a quick review of some things. So this North Plains Municipal Code, which is all adopted by ordinance by North Plains City Council, chapters 31.60 to 31.66 are actually that's the portion of the North Plains Municipal Code, and that the HTML link will take you right to all of this. That's actually the portion of city code that really kind of outlines everything that the definitions of the Parks Board and what it's supposed to be doing, and everything here by this by these titles. Those are the different sections that lay out the code for what the Parks Board should be doing and how it should be doing it. And it's pretty narrow in terms of giving, definitions and kind of essential rules and essential charge to the Parks Board. The bylaws, as we'll talk about in a second, that's really kind of how you all flesh out the rules, how to successfully carry all of this out. And since there hasn't really been, one hasn't been done, that's kind of a big important task for you all to take on, so that you can kind of just, helps conduct business and help make decisions better and faster and better make recommendations to City Council for that matter. But these are just the sections in the code that really pertain to the Parks Board. I will say that in terms of code for the Parks Board, it's most similar to the chapter, the section for the Economic Development Commission, which is a good thing because the bylaws that we've shared as an example that we hope you kind of take as a template anyway, come from what the EDC did here just this past year. So, you know, if you want to send them some flowers and say thank you for the heavy lifting, you're welcome to do that, but you don't have to. Anyway, this just kind of cuts to the chase. The very last part of those sections that I shared, and I highlight, or excuse me, I italicized the language here, but in 3166, forum rules and regulations for the Parks Board. You know, the very last sentence in the municipal code about Parks Board is you all need some rules. And that's kind of what we want to kick off so that you really you have them and you can go to city council with a recommendation for your own bylaws and they have to adopt them by resolution. So that's kind of the outline of that, but you're directly charged to have rules. And again, this is a wall of text. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it necessarily, but it's really meant kind of as a refresher and reminder, and please do go back to this during your process, but really kind of here's the essence of your purpose. And I don't want to read through it all, but this is really these kind of big areas of parks and recreation, parks facilities, planning, programs, fees, funding of it, and the rules around how the parks are used by residents and visitors. Those are all topics, not exclusive lists, but those are kind of the big charges you have, and some of you might be like extremely familiar with all the words here, and some of you might be new. I would encourage you to go back and take a look, or go back and refresh yourself as you kind of take up bylaws here. So anyway, and I put the HTML direct link to each of these sections or chapters at the top of each of these slides. And if you have any questions as we go along, you don't have to wait until the end. If you have any kind of questions, yeah.
Are you gonna send us a copy of what you're showing us?
Yes, there's a PDF. I shared it with Zach. Unfortunately, he is feeling yuck. So I'll work with him on and Lori to make sure you all get a copy. There's only like 6 or 7 slides at most, so it's a pretty simple reference. Okay. When the EDC was established as a permanent body, as of January 1st of this year, actually, it had been an ad hoc economic development committee for a few years, since 2018. And the time came, hey, they're ready to be a permanent body, and city council recognized that the value of having them to be a permanent commission rather than an ad hoc committee. And so they had to go through the process of brand new ordinance for themselves, not just bylaws. They had to go through with ordinance too. You all have ordinance in place that was most recently updated in 2022. Lori had clarified me on that today. I thought it was 2017, but there were some changes in 2022. So this isn't about going and changing ordinance and kind of the code about the Parks Board. This is really more just the rules you come together with and ask city council to adopt. So, and again, because the EDC recently went through the process and the city attorney reviewed and tweaked and updated to make sure that the bylaws that they wrote were consistent with state law and the city code in general. I'm strongly encouraging you all to take a look at the EDC those same EDC bylaws as a template. There's a lot you can borrow from there, but this kind of starts with it. We'd recommend that you have similar sections in it. Really take the document and work with it, but take its format. The EDC has 7 compulsory sections and 1 optional section. The optional section, and I'll talk a little bit about it in a second, but your bylaws will kind of start with an article about your name. The second one will be about what your purpose and duties are. That's almost word for word right out of the ordinance. So there's no work to do. The third is membership, talking about how you're qualified and what your terms are and that sort of thing. Again, most of that's from the ordinance, the code that I referred to earlier. So there's very little homework to do or anything new to do for Article 3. Article 4 is just about how you vote. It's very simple and you get to do it yourself, but it'll be extremely obvious how simple it is if you didn't look at the EDC's bylaws. So that's Article 4. The 5th article is really just kind of rules about a little bit more specificity about the rules you have regarding your meetings, when, how often, how they'll be called, that sort of thing. And again, most of that is from the code we talked about earlier. So very little original work to do there. The EDC decided on a completely optional article for subcommittees, okay? The EDC looks at a bunch of different things related to business development, economic development, downtown. I mean, you all look at a wide variety of things. They decided that in all of the variety of things they look at, rather than handling everything regular meeting to regular meeting every month, they decided to allow for the ability for groups of 3, non-quorum subgroups of the committee to be able to meet in groups of 3 as smaller work groups about specific tasks. There's one that's specifically downtown. There's one that's specifically urban growth boundary, as examples. And so there's one specifically that's just kind of about business development and those 3 and marketing the community and those 3 will be the most intensely working with the Chamber of Commerce on some upcoming business surveying and business interviews that was just discussed at the most recent EDC. But those subcommittees allow 3 people who are particularly passionate about a particular topic to meet, and it's non-quorum, so they can meet and do whatever they need to do, and we don't have any public meetings issues whatsoever. Completely optional, but you are welcome to have a similar approach, and having a section like that, a 6th section optional, you're welcome to do that. Number 7 would be how you can make amendments to your bylaws. Not a very long section, but it should be in there and you're welcome to borrow the language that the EDC kind of work towards. And then ratification, there's just a kind of final section of the bylaws about how to ratify, how these new or first bylaws are ratified and how amendments in the future should be ratified. So that's kind of it. The EDC bylaws that City Council took and adopted were in the agenda packet. And my intent this evening was not to walk through all of that in detail, but I'm happy to kind of talk about any of this and set this up. I'm happy to return to future meetings. This PowerPoint presentation will be a resource. I'll be working with Zach and Dustin on, and certainly Lori on all of this. So we want to set you up to, have a successful process that doesn't, feel like coming up with rules isn't the most exciting thing, but it's pretty essential here. So we want this to be successful for you. Here's a few things. Again, these are bylaws, and so you get to have some discretion and work on coming up with rules about how you conduct your business that are kind of yours. And I just wanted to list here on this slide some things that the EDC really kind of discussed as their own rules or procedures, okay? As examples of maybe how you might want to look at some things, or just to kind of give you an idea of the range of options you have as you consider bylaws. The first one, and I kind of show where in the EDC bylaws that the issue is addressed. The EDC decided to produce a written report to City Council on a quarterly basis, just kind of summarizing all the work they've been doing. You have an ex officio member every month. They give a full report. Some city councilors, when they're ex officio, give, you have one tonight that is extremely thorough when he reports to City Council. Others don't take as good a notes as Councilor Sheldon does. And so you don't get quite the same detail. And so that was, the EDC decided that they would like to kind of have in their own voice a summary of the City Council of what's kind of been going on at the committee, and then focus on different topics when they need to. You can do that, you don't have to. That's one example of some of the options you can put in your bylaws. one thing that's optional to you, but they discussed, well, do we want the same chair for multiple terms, or should we put limits on how many terms in a row the chair can serve? There are no limits on the number of terms that you as volunteers can be on this board, but perhaps we should have some turnover and change in who holds the gavel. How long should they serve? They landed on 2 consecutive terms, at most. So that's an option. You don't have to do that, but it's an example of some of the discretion you have in coming up with your own rules. One thing that they kind of worked on was, what happens if we have a member that is never there? Or a member that just isn't working with us and is working counter towards, or maybe there's a conflict in what they're doing versus professionally versus what they're doing on the board, just what ifs. The city code doesn't give you rules or what to do about recommending or removing a member who isn't conducting themselves appropriately. Everybody's charged in the code with following the rules and their conduct needs to be consistent with rules and law, but there isn't really specifics about what happens, how you all as a
We
body
need that because
handle it.
we've been there and
Yeah, so there you go. So they came up with their own kind of criteria and they landed on, we'll make a recommendation to city council that that person be removed based on ABC or whatever. And they can talk to city council and kind of appeal that recommendation. So the EDC decided, well, we don't feel we have the ultimate authority, but we can certainly decide to make a strong recommendation to council to make that decision. So there's that. And you can have different approach to that issue, but I strongly recommend you address the issue in your rules. There isn't really anything about special meetings and how often, how they get called, that sort of thing. Something comes up. There isn't really anything specific in the municipal code about that. So you get EDC worked on, well, what does that look like and why? And you all can work on something like that too if you want. Again, the subcommittees thing, the entire Article 6 was an optional part of their bylaws to let them come up with I love being able to work at a city and use the word non for it. It's a spelling bee word, of course, but it's great to be able to use it. But in groups of 3 so that you're not running afoul of any kind of court and public meeting issue. You can get together, email, have a Google Work document, those are kinds of the things that they do. And they really kind of meet in between meetings and talk, hey, this or that. And then municipal code is silent really on how do you change your bylaws, how you adopt your bylaws. That's something that you can kind of have some say in how you'd like to do that or some variation on that. So anyway, that's kind of the range of things that EDC worked through. Well, nothing controversial in there for any of the members, but just kind of different topics and issues that they talked about. And this took 2 or 3 meetings. I think it was 3 meetings actually. But they were newer. They're a newer body. You've been around longer and you kind of have a longer history. And so maybe the process will be a little different for you, maybe not, but that gives you an idea of what all is at your discretion to think about for rules.
Question.
Yeah.
I mean, on a practical level, we have these city codes that cover purpose, membership terms, meetings, a lot of these same things the bylaws cover. So it seems, to me, it's a little confusing because it's a bit redundant to have 2 documents that say a lot of mostly the same stuff. So why wouldn't we just try to get an amendment to what we already have? Because it looks to me like when I look over these codes, 3163 on down, we've got probably 2/3, it's already there.
Right.
So why not just enhance what we already have rather than, it seems to me it could become a little confusing when I've got 2 different documents, both saying separate statements of purpose, membership terms,
Right.
meeting, they're covering the same things in 2 different places.
The reason is because the bylaws are meant to be a more expansive document that you all as a body get to determine the additional rules and procedures for how you conduct yourselves based on the more narrow code, municipal code or ordinance about this body. So it's meant to really kind of be more customizable and more hands-on, decided upon by you as a body for yourselves. Code is the law of the city, and it's meant to be more essential. And to change it, modify it, requires a formal process and adoption of ordinance by the city council. Whereas if you all come to a point where you decide, it's not working to do it this way, you can change it because they're just bylaws. You don't have to have city council do a hearing and noticing and change the law of the city just for you to change how you conduct your business.
So why don't we just state all the codes we already have and not reinvent them? So why would we do a purpose again, a membership again, terms again, meetings? Let's just add on these extras and then just restate, these are what we already have for codes.
Well,
It seems redundant to do a discussion of purpose when I already have purpose in the code.
well, that's why, no, those are good points, Don, but that's why I said, the bylaws include all of this information, it's standard, but you can just pull from the code, which is what we did with the EDC. You pull that information from the code and drop it right into your bylaws. Because it needs to be there. Some of the code are your law, your rules. So they should be in your bylaws also.
But it seems to me, I would just want to copy it, because otherwise I
And
don't
that's
want
what
the
you'll do.
bylaws to be different than the code.
No, yeah, if I'm communicating something different, I don't mean to, that's exactly what you'll be doing. Your name, your purpose and duties, like I mentioned on this slide, you're pulling it right from the ordinance. 60% of the content here is right from the code. You're gonna drop right into your own bylaws, because that's the intent of the code, they're your rules.
So why don't we just say that? Here's the city code that pertains to Parks and Recs. In addition to that, we've added the following.
You can phrase it that way if you like, yeah. You
Yeah,
can phrase it
because
that way.
there's no reason to,
Yeah, you can phrase them however you want, you just have to have these different elements to
the
it.
extras.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because the rest of it is really meant to be how you all want to run your meetings and conduct business to carry out what the city council is requires of you in the ordinance, in the code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Ultimately, the goal here is to not make it more complicated, but simpler. Yes, pull it from, take all of that and drop it into your bylaws.
Well, and the key issue, it seems to me, is where it gets confusing. The city uses these words, boards, commissions, committees. Realistically, I'm used to boards that have decision-making power. Realistically, we're an advisory group to the city council, which is a very important distinction. So should we somehow, we have to acknowledge that.
I think what you could do is add some self-description language along those lines in your Article 1 or Article 2 of your new bylaws. Under name, you're gonna have a section that basically just says, we as outlined by North Plains ordinance are the Parks and Recreation Board. And then you can add, we are an advisory body to city council. You can just elaborate a little, but that's the nice thing about bylaws is the bylaws document is where you can kind of flesh things out a little more that the code doesn't let you do, because it's strictly law. Any other questions about any of that? Again, this was really more meant to be an introduction and to kind of get the ball rolling on the process.
Should we add the mission statement to this as well?
You're welcome to. Yeah. But, I mean,
And that's right on the master plan and goals.
yeah, you certainly can. I mean, you all decide, how you want that added in there, but this document really is yours to put together. And if you want, maybe change the name of the, let me back up. Change you could have that in the first one and change the name to name and mission. You could have it in the second, however you like.
Sure.
Okay, so I have one more slide here. Again, you all get this, but this is just kind of how just to kind of reiterate. I will share the Word version of the EDC bylaws that council adopted. You're welcome to take that, edit it, stretch it, boil it down however you like, just to make sure you get all of the same sections and you address all of the same issues that need to be addressed, but in the way that you all want to address them, or you feel appropriate as to address them. So that's the first 2 bullet points. Take that document, tailor it the way you would like. And again, that format and the content of it got city attorney review and with some red lines and that we got all of that. Wasn't anything that came up, just subtle changes to language, that sort of thing. So it's got that document's already passed muster in a few different ways. So it's just a nice place to start, but make it yours with how you change it. The other 2 things I would recommend, and I can work with you on, or Dustin can work with you on with Lori, and that is that it would be a good idea to either have some kind of work session or portion of a work session just to talk about, here's our new bylaws and this is the thought put into them, and kind of get council, make them aware, get feedback, or maybe we could put a new business item or conversation on the regular city council meeting agenda, but something along those lines, so that you don't come to them with a out of nowhere in terms of a public meeting of any kind. But we kind of like some kind of conversation to happen, so that when you do give them the final version and they consider adopting it by resolution, they've had time to think about and kind of what you're putting forward to them that's a bit different for you. And then once all of that is done, we'll take that final recommendation to city council and they'll be the ones to adopt it by resolution. So that's the process, that's the procedure. Any questions about any of that?
Is there a timeline that the city council wanted this done by? So maybe they were hoping by the 4th of next year.
Yeah, I mean, it would be great to have it done before the end of the year. Council didn't say, staff, what's going on over at the Parks Board? It wasn't like that. It was just EDC got done with their bylaws. I think we were looking some information up and there were no bylaws for you all, not even any ones that hadn't been looked at in a while. So I guess what we would say is we'd really like to have this done by the end of the year. If you submitted something to council for a December meeting for adoption, no later than, that would be great. I think given that you have a document that's kind of already run the gauntlet a bit, you have something to work with and it should be quicker for you.
Absolutely.
But there's still some conversations to have to kind of fill it out the way you would like.
Would this be a good project for them to break into subcommittees and suggest, get the document out and kind of agree on suggested changes and then each subcommittee bring theirs back, or, otherwise we're gonna get seven back that all each has their own.
Yeah, no, that's a great suggestion, Lori. I think maybe with some email conversation with Zach after this meeting, we can say, you know what, you could probably give a first take of articles 1, 2, and 3 to XYZ, and he can kind of figure out how to split the labor up. But yeah, that might be the way to go. So we'll work with him on that.
I think probably voting a majority of maybe the next Parks Board meeting to this, give people time to brainstorm, think about it a bit more.
Mhm.
And then if need be, break into smaller groups to finalize things for maybe November's meeting, then try to work off schedule like that that works with everyone. Because it seems like you said, most of it's already there for us. We just have to.
It seems like maybe step one would be review the city code. Because we don't want to have 2 separate purposes, because the code is going to prevail. So maybe step one is review the code and see, is there anything we want to change in that? That would have to go through the code change process, right?
That's correct, Don. If you if you go through the code and something seems outdated or odd to you, yes, you can bring that to staff and we can have that conversation.
So then we change whatever we want to change in that, and then we say, what else do we need? That would be step 2, right? What is missing from the codes that we would put in the bylaws?
But that's separate than the bylaws. The bylaws are how we function as a body.
But bylaws, when you see bylaws, they include a lot of these same things. Don't bylaws often include the purpose and the membership and the,
The codes can be changed later. We can get the bylaws in place.
My recommendation is personally is kind of along the lines of what Sherry's mentioning, and that is that, maybe, I think taking a look at the code would be appropriate. Times have changed. You have many more different parks. We're on the, we're back working through a UGB expansion. We're kind of kicking that off again. Parks are going to be a big deal. And this board is going to be involved in a variety of different things and looking into things. What I wouldn't do is let a code review kind of sink the progress of just getting your bylaws done. So maybe you sequence things so that you give the ordinance a look later or something. I would just get the bylaws just so you can kind of have something in hand and you can work with.
yeah, I'm presuming, I guess, I'm not presuming it's a big deal. I'm presuming in everybody looks it over and we spend 15, 20 minutes saying it looks good to me, or I just want to tweak one line. I agree, I wouldn't spend a lot of energy, but the code is the code. We don't want to have contrary opinions on purpose. That's the starting point for purpose is the code.
Yeah.
But I agree, I wouldn't spend much time on it, but we could spend a few minutes. Okay, very good.
Sure.
Well, but our purpose also is the goals on the master plan.
Pardon?
The goals on the master plan
Uh-huh,
is our purpose.
okay.
So that might be something we
But
want to
that's,
also look
is
through.
that what it says in the code?
In the code?
Yeah, the code,
I don't know about the code. I'm talking about the parks master plan. States the purpose.
I mean, all I'm saying is the code is the official thing. It actually has a purpose, right? Under 31 something, we already have a purpose.
Yeah,
That's the starting point. We don't want 2 or 3 purposes.
this is the.
So we would start, you look at this purpose, Sherry, and you say, well, let's add in this and this and this or whatever, right? Yeah, yeah, that would be great.
Yes.
Enhance it.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
So it just like it gives them the example as a couple different purposes there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. The master plan, we bring that in.
That's about all I have to bring to you this evening. Are there any other questions about that topic?
Thank you.
Thank you all. Most appreciated. And
Thank you very much.
thank you.
Do we want to have any more discussion on this, or do we just want to mull it over for our next meeting? Take our own time to think about it, what we want to see for the bylaws.
I mean, I think if people are comfortable, we could say let's review the city codes. If that was in our agenda packet, please review relevant city codes and see if there's anything in there you think needs to be changed, and then we can talk more, like Sherry had a good idea of things we would add, additional items to the purpose, to the whatever, and then,
Probably take a good chunk of next meeting to sort of fine tune it, sort of get it more down on paper, what we want to I'll say, make sure it's all worded correctly.
It's the 40% we get to work on that makes the document standalone for us.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll take some time, but let's get that done.
How do we brainstorm between now and October and not leave the brainstorming fully for October? Because if we do that in October, then we're gonna have to come back in November, and then that's gonna delay the process to even kind of like the idea of being able to go to council first to give them the set of ideas or intention, then before December. So what can we propose to do in the meantime between now and October, so that when we come and meet in October, we kind of all have more of our, or do we all come with our individual homework in October and put that on agenda, that's what we're gonna work on in October and leave October with like the full, or at
November.
least 99% of what we want to show to council in November.
That'll be a long meeting. I'm in.
Personally, as the way I see it, doesn't seem like this would take as much time, because
Yeah.
we mostly know what we want as the purpose and all that. And we've already discussed a couple of these things in the last year, such as the voting and membership. So I think.
Well, if each of you wanted to take the EDC template and redline it and make your changes and then send them all to me 2 weeks before the meeting, then I can group them together by page, the ones that are, all the ones that deal with membership. These are the changes that were suggested, this, and then you can discuss those few changes and agree on one, and we can fit that in
I like that.
instead of, place of the red line. Honestly, I don't feel like there should be a whole bunch of stuff. I mean, it's, you're doing the same thing that the other boards and commissions are doing, just, under a different
Category.
subject, category, yeah. So,
You don't have to rewrite the whole thing.
Perhaps our president and vice president could bring something back to us.
the chair, vice chair, you mean Zach and,
Yeah, Zach, yeah. You guys as our leaders could perhaps sit down and put some changes together and happy to be a part of it. I'm not trying to sort of kick this to you guys, but I'm happy to be a part of it.
that's why I suggested
Yeah.
maybe subcommittees, where one,
I,
couple of you take the first chunk, and then a couple of you take the second, and then 3 of you take the other. It doesn't matter, it's just, we want to get it whittled down so that we're not going through each person's changes one by one at the next meeting. I think is what
Exactly.
Joanna's
That's why
saying.
I'm trying to avoid that, because
Exactly.
then we're gonna meet again in November about it, and
Yeah.
then, rather than, because like everyone's saying, I think we're all on the same page that I don't think we're gonna change much. It's little things here and there, especially on the last parts of it. Like one interesting thing that I'm interested in is the subcommittee one. I think we should add something that, I think that we proved that in the last couple months when we divided and conquered in regards to, we had a subcommittee before to test out the parks, what we did at the schools and what you guys do with the concerts. And that really worked out with this, where we kind of divide and conquer during busy times. So that's one part that I feel we should add to it.
I would have to agree with that. That seems definitely something that we should do, because we already are doing that, so we should have some rules for that. Definitely gonna have to share this with Zach. Does Zach already have the,
He has the packet, just like you guys do.
okay, I wasn't sure if he had the little PowerPoint also. But now,
He does.
That's okay.
I sent that this afternoon.
well, hopefully, it'll be when he feels better, I'll have a chance to look over it, and we can maybe go over some stuff.
but you're still gonna send that out to all of us, right?
I'll send it to you. in the
Thank
morning.
you.
I
And the
was
word,
just,
and word doc,
I was looking,
and the word,
And the Word doc, yes.
yes.
I just went online and I was looking like at Banks, Oregon and Forest Grove, because they're similar, and I looked up Parks and Rec stuff, and it looks like they're mostly doing everything, as far as I can tell, through their codes. So that's the thing I'm still a little confused on, like Banks just has a huge list of all these little things that are all as city codes. So my question is there something that requires us to not just have a longer code document, which is a lot of what we want? We're required to have a code document and to have bylaws? Is that like some rule, or
Well, that's in the code.
the code says you have to have bylaws?
The code said the code says you have to have rules.
But the rules can't be in the codes.
It's for reasons of not cluttering the code as well as flexibility of this body to amend how it does things as it identifies it could be done differently or better. Tweaking your own rules by having to have city council go through an ordinance adoption process is not the big deal. Time, just all that.
But how do you explain, like, when I'm looking for something, people get confused easily, how do they know if they have a question related to Parks and Rec? If they should go to the code or they should go to the bylaws? Is there a logic to what goes where?
The code establishes the essentials for the Parks Board existing, who's the essentials, just the essentials, who's on it. They meet at least once a quarter and other things, but just the essence of its existence, kind of give it the skeleton framework.
Okay.
Yeah, the code is, the way to look at the code is it's the skeleton framework. The bylaws flesh out that skeleton a bit in terms of how you all do your thing. And, you know, there are improvements to the city's website on different topics that will happen over time. Perhaps this is one of them that helps answer that question. But this document, as directed by code, by ordinance, is your own rules for how to do things your way, consistent with code. And the EDC and other bodies have their own slightly different rules.
Okay.
I mean, a lot of it's redundant to code, but that's just because the code, you know, this code's the skeleton, the bylaws of the
That's
fleshed out
okay.
body.
So we would have more discussion on this or just mull it over. I'm trying to touch base with Zach. I'm trying to. That's the word I'm looking for. Solidify it a little bit more, and then we could. Next meeting, we can try to get the main points in and try to get it all settled out. That works for everyone.
And everybody should be looking at it.
I'm gonna go through it and.
Yeah.
There's no reason no one should be, there's no reason everyone shouldn't be going through this.
Yeah, no, everybody should be.
Just in case all of us miss one point except for one person sees it, yeah. Very good to have everyone look at it. In case we need to change something. Well, in that case, if everyone's ready, I think we can move on to.
Me? Unfinished business?
Yes. Finished business, starting with Patty, with the Concerts in the Park event update.
Well, the band was great. The band was wonderful. The attendance sucked. Not very good. The threat of thunder and lightning was good. It really didn't rain until about 8:20. And so that part was good. And the people that were there had a great time.
But there were only about 15 people there.
15 to 20. somewhere in there.
So our concern is it worth the money
Yeah,
that we're spending on this to have 15 to 50 people show?
I mean, it seems like we've really got like a 2-for-1 special, so when we have this thing downtown and something else is already happening, and then we add in the bands.
yeah,
That seems to be the success, like,
yeah.
we
Johnny
have
Limbo.
the car show.
Yeah,
The car show was a great success. What about if that also had a band or whatever it is? Combining two things seems to, the free ice cream and the band.
yeah.
It would be nice to move the concert in the park money then to the ice cream social to help afford the band for that night.
Yeah.
I think so. The ice cream social was amazing. It was
Mhm.
great. Everybody loved it. It's a great kickoff. It's at the time that everyone's still in town too.
Yeah.
Before, summer where schools are about to end. It just works, I think,
Mhm.
perfect. I had an amazing time and I thought it was amazing. And the music just adds so much to it, and being right in downtown, that's what everybody loves about it. I think it's great.
I mean, somebody mentioned to me this practical idea, which I thought, line dancing has become quite popular. Maybe we spend the money for one of our events downtown, this, woman who does the line dancing, and you hire somebody, like my grandkids would love it. So you do it for all ages, basically. And you could start off with the kids, and then you could go to adults later. They can stay and have a drink and keep going. But anyway, that would be a potential thing too, is something that's interactive and fun.
I think also, I mean, people have always loved the ice cream social. We've had the music the last 2 years, it's done great. We could have music in the street. We could close the street and have it in the evening. It doesn't have to be, I mean, I know it's harder on the weekends because, you know, the other businesses are busy, but maybe that will attract more people.
I think so. And it doesn't have to be fully all closed. I think the closing how the ice cream social.
Yeah,
is perfect.
yeah.
And it puts you in the spots of, you know, a restaurant, sorry, I'm fairly not still.
Right.
Yeah, the road and all the other businesses around, which is, I think it's a great idea to do.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it would, I mean, don't have anything to lose.
Right.
Definitely one thing that people, even though people like music, they prefer, they'll be listening while doing something else.
Yeah, so
Can we just have free beer instead of free ice cream? Is that against rules?
you have to get the OLCC license in.
A lot of those fans.
Yeah.
In the last couple of years, what have our high water marks been for people attending music only events?
So,
It's only 2 years out of COVID, so it's.
Right.
yeah,
I mean, before that, before COVID, there was usually a fairly good turnout. But it definitely has not.
yeah, she's right. It changed things. I don't know why, but, we had, what was the one band?
Garcia birthday.
Yeah,
band.
Garcia Birthday Band, who I've tried to get.
But it drew lots of people from outside of North Plains
Mhm.
because they have a big following.
Right.
So if you get a band like that, that has a following, then you'll have more people.
But it's also a different type of following too.
It is.
It's gonna bring a little different culture to the setting.
Well, and that's part of the reason why the ice cream social drew so many, because Johnny Limbo's very well known in the
Right.
whole Portland metro area. And they have a huge following, so.
The bands, it really depends on the band for your draw.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's better used to use that money where it's gonna bring the draw, to use it wisely. Whether it's adding more to the ice cream social or adding just another, besides it,
Yeah.
one more event in downtown, similar to. the
Yeah.
ice cream.
I think so too. I think I mean, it's a little more work, but, you know, because you've got street closures and cranky neighbors and.
Make sure the businesses are happy with it.
Yeah, well, it's one night. It's one night. I learned that. I mean, that's,
Is there a,
yeah.
could we ever have kind of, presuming the weather's nice, I've seen it done where you have these outside areas where you could sit by the road and kids, it's just for adults, but they could have a beer and hear the music. Our wine guy, that you could go over to his area and we have an enclosed area for adults where you can have a glass of wine and hear the band, because it just, you know, it carries really well in the street area. So
Right.
maybe we could build up.
They can talk with the businesses about having a closed off area for their business for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it done. It's not that complicated. You put up temporary signage and.
Right, it would have to be, Russ, it would have to be, the road would have to get their special license, correct?
Correct.
And they would have to, which is scary.
Be in charge of monitoring.
Yeah, that would be,
Staff, it's a separate area.
Which is,
Same with the
You have to
hitch.
establish a license program.
yeah,
Mhm.
You need a special license like for the winery to sit
Yeah.
outside and have a
yes,
glass of wine.
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
I need a one-time event license.
Yeah,
Okay. I mean, all we.
which isn't hard, they just have to do it, but they also have to man the area.
Yeah.
They can't just say, I've got this license and you can go out and have a drink here. It has to be manned so that they're not going every which way and somebody handing somebody else a drink just because they've been ID'd, so.
Well, part of that monitoring is alcohol monitors.
Right.
So if you're expecting 200 people, you have to have a certain amount of alcohol monitors and a perimeter of alcohol monitors.
Yeah.
Where alcohol can stay within that perimeter. What about the food cart area too? Like if there's no parking in there and that's used just for, so people park somewhere else outside of it, so you're not closing down per se streets. But the concert is in their parking lot, and they have a little lawn area too, don't they?
But yeah, behind that.
And using that parking as the concert area where people take their lawn chairs and sit there and all of that, and then you park outside of.
Maybe, I could talk to Kent, see if he'd be, I mean, he's open for most anything.
So where is this at the food cart?
Yeah.
Because he doesn't have any grass. It's
Yes, he
just
does.
gravel.
Yeah, no, on the back
On the
side,
backside.
on the
back.
on the back of the food carts.
Or
But
back
you
of
know,
house
with
or-
the gravel, you can do they can do the stage right in the parking area where it's not gravel, there's a piece of cement right by that huge.
Yeah, where the doors are.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
And then not use that as a parking area, people can take still their lawn chairs and sit on the
I mean, it's not like there's not parking right next door.
Right, exactly.
And
That's
know my-
that can be a.
if we just wanted to add more onto it, I know my sister been really into line dancing the last year or two. I know they're always moving places, doing it on different days, so maybe I could talk to her, to have her talk to the ladies in charge of that, see if they want to do that well there with the bands.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure 100% what,
And then you're
band
able
they
to
do it with.
food there with the food carts.
Yeah.
So
Make it a
Yeah.
real big.
It'd be neat for them too, it'd be nice to look at
Yeah.
this business.
it's worked really good with the Hillsborough, what's it called?
The downtown.
Down station, the one off of Baseline. That's what they started doing, was bringing a band, and they have a much smaller little area.
This last
but
year, I went
that's
to
what
the,
they've been doing, is bringing a band, and it just works for the vendors, it works for just as a whole for the business.
I ended up going to one of the Hillsborough's concert at Parks by accident, because they were do one of the dance class things, and I was free that day, so I told the sister, fine, I'll go. It just happened to be at that park for their first concert in the park for Hillsborough.
Yeah,
They had a very good turnout with a bunch of food carts there.
Why don't we look at doing something like, North Plains Oktoberfest?
Gone.
Not this year, next year.
Okay.
Are you busy?
Once a year worth of planning in there.
Yeah, I've gone almost all of October, so.
Yeah.
I mean,
Um,
North Plains does have an abundance of breakfast.
Have different breweries come in, we have to close the street off and, you know, have the monitors and whatnot, but have music and we find German music and you could have some line dancing, some chicken line dancing,
I like,
something new. It would be something new.
yeah.
And some barbecue.
I know, that's starting to sound like more like the event association than the parks board. Well, that's our plan, emphasizing one of our parks with this.
Well, the Parks Board. Well, it's a city event regardless.
Is that all for the update?
Yep, that's it.
Anyone have anything else about the concert in the park?
I like the ideas for next year.
More work. That's our goal.
Who loves that? Okay, I guess we're gonna be moving on to the Parks Foundation meeting update.
There is no meeting update. I
Short and
think
sweet.
there was a meeting last month, but I was not here last month, so, I didn't get an update from Cindy. So I'm hoping that we have a meeting in the coming week. So
and you guys will meet like quarterly, is that right?
Yes, it's been quarterly, and we just met in July, so I don't think we're gonna meet
Okay.
until probably I haven't heard that we're meeting this month, so if we don't meet this month, it won't be till October.
Okay. I guess moving on to the update about the ribbon cutting and grand opening of the Pacific Dog Park.
I've got an update on dog park,
Okay,
so.
let's say Dustin's not here though.
We had the grand opening on Saturday, some of you were there. Great turnout, once again, another big kudos to the chamber for all the help. They make those events pop, really, and more than we can independently. Got a lot of great feedback there about people enjoying the park and what we can look to do in the future. A lot of people were really liking the concept of adding like a water fountain to water the dogs or shade structure. A lot of concerns about the heat. Obviously, it was very hot on Saturday, so I think people's minds were definitely on how they were going to keep cool. So staff are going to be putting together some options and ideas, and maybe in the coming months you'll see a couple of those. And we'll be looking for your input on what improvements to do in the future.
Did you walk around? I was reading the posts, which are positive about the park, except somebody said that their dog got all muddy on the farthest end, that there's muck down there that's still mucky. Is that true?
That would be accurate. It is unimproved floodplain.
No, he said it's muddy as we speak.
Yes, oh yes, there were some very happy muddy dogs on
Yeah.
Saturday.
That's why we could never make an
That's what-
actual
that was
park
keeping
out of
them
it.
cool.
Yeah, it doesn't
Mud.
ever completely dry out during the year.
So that was my only suggestion, if we would maybe revisit that, because the one person said, which I get, it's not just nice water. He said it was very stinky, smelly stuff wherever. So my
He was
question.
just a cranky person.
Well, we talked about the way the thing goes, it starts big and then goes narrow. We could even just do temporary fencing and let's just close off the final section where the muck is bad.
So
Wasn't
if it is
on the
mucky in August, there is gonna be nothing temporary about the fencing. It's gonna be mucky 360.
Well, I'm saying maybe we should consider fencing that off permanently because there's no value to that.
I think that's something we could look at if it becomes a real concern for people, if it keeps coming up. Right now, I don't know that we necessarily want to decrease the area. It's already a small plot. So it's something we'll definitely keep an eye on. If it's an issue that keeps coming up, or it raises a safety concern, we'll definitely look at
I
a
think-
conversation.
I bet there was some dogs
Maybe we
that
should-
were happy.
Oh, there were some very
Very
happy
happy.
laughs.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just turn that into
And
a
like I
dog
said, the
watering
dogs
area.
don't
Get a
care.
pump.
No,
They
So the
don't
water
care.
source right next.
If we can
right
get
next
a
to
water
it.
fountain or
And the
Have
something
a
that we
slight filter system so they
wash
can
them.
It's the thing is,
try to cool off their dogs there.
as
Keep
the
it,
rains come
because
in,
it's not gonna
that
dry out.
works its
it's
way out, so
gonna
we got it
build
with the
up, so
fence.
it's temporary,
Using
Yeah,
and
temporary.
cooling
you'll
off
end
space
up
there.
getting rid of half the park
Yeah.
at some
Exactly.
point.
That's
So, you know, some places close their parks down.
Yeah.
When it's raining, so. I mean, it's a dog park,
How
so.
many dogs were there?
Oh, 15-ish, yeah.
Cause I happened to
mix
walk by
of-
the next day and
Did they
I
enjoy
don't know
the
why, but
treats?
there was
Yes,
strange
they
smell
love the treats
there
and they
by-
love
The garbage can
Yes,
was
I think the best part was
hadn't been
getting money.
Okay, so that was it.
prior to it.
Hello, that's what they do.
So the one thing we do need to make sure is that the garbage cans are emptied.
Yes.
I've had several people talk to me about that, and, I don't know how often the guys empty that,
Well,
but
not on the weekend, that may be part of the problem right now, people are using them a lot on Saturday and Sunday. We don't have staff to come in until Monday morning.
yeah, this, I don't think
This
this has
has
been
been
changed.
there for a
This,
while.
this was bad.
I'll talk to.
I'll talk to Public Works.
I happened to notice when I walked by later on Sunday. I happened to notice the odor when I walked by later on Sunday, like, right, is that the wood? Did they put something on it?
I have a question, kind of related, kind of not.
I kind of maybe have an answer.
I bet you don't. My concern is, I see parks people, or not parks people, but, lawn care service for like Bryn Hill. Out spraying their grasses and stuff like that, where I don't want my dog to walk on that. You know,
Yeah.
it would be lovely to know what their schedule is, so you know what days not to go.
Well, Brent Hills, their
Area.
HOA does it, and so
But
it's on them. Now, us, we just hired a new business that does the mowing and trimming and stuff, so Dustin will have that information on.
yeah,
Yeah, I think Sherry's saying maybe a schedule for the dog park, just so people know.
well, not just the dog park, just other areas, because I don't know, I just don't want my dog walking on chemicals.
I mean, I would think it shouldn't be hard to tell the people we don't want the chemicals used on that grass, right? Because it's too risky.
Well, then they'll complain about the weeds,
Pardon?
Yeah, I know.
but then they'll complain about the weeds.
Right.
I think
Really,
that's
if you
still,
just-
we'd say that's what, there's gonna be a few more weeds, because we're not gonna risk.
Well, really, if you just know when
Unless
it's
you do
gonna
it.
happen, then you just stay away from it for
There probably are.
that day, right? Until things are settled in.
Any more questions, comments, or concerns for the dog park? No?
It should be mentioned somewhere. I just think Dustin, I thought, did a wonderful job, so maybe we note that in the minutes. Kudos to Dustin Public Works for, he shepherded this whole project. I saw where he'd answer people's questions in a very calm manner. He did a great job.
Fortunately, I wasn't able to make it because I already had
And of all
another commitment for that
things-
day at that time.
He chose to get married over coming to the dog park vacation. I think we should talk.
Okay, keep that on record.
Well.
Okay, moving on then to update on Jesse May Kitchen Project.
I have nothing.
Excellent.
So the last I heard was we turned in the application, is that
Yes.
correct? Oh,
Yes.
that was in July?
That was in July, that was
Okay.
turned into the foundation.
Okay.
Yes.
So no new updates on that.
Yeah, the next meeting was to discuss where, how, or who that money's gonna come from.
I guess with no new updates on that, moving on to board and staff comments. We're gonna start way out at the end.
What's my question for whatever?
Board comment, staff comments.
Oh, my only one was what happened, Bryn Hill, the 4 and 5 parks, we were
They
hoping
will be at the October meeting
they're gonna come.
with their
that's
final presentation.
Final, and then,
What they feel is their
and
final.
then we review it, work with them, and then it goes to the city council, kind of, that's the process.
Or are they going right to city council?
I don't know. I'm not sure.
Has this body ever shepherded any recommendation?
Well, yeah, when Brindle first started, they came and presented and there were changes made. We don't like the logs and remember, just the basic.
All the mini strip parks.
And, yeah, and strip parks. And so they changed, they listened to the board and made some changes. They certainly didn't agree to everything. And they won't this time, whatever, this board doesn't have, I think, as much say in that as you guys would like, but that's the way it works. So
How does it work?
they present, which they did before, and they took your suggestions. You didn't want the skate park, you didn't want this, you wanted this, whatever, I don't remember. I listened to a lot of meetings, and they go back and take your input and work it into what they feel is an agreeable compromise for both sides.
So we meet in October, try to reach an agreement with them, and that recommendation goes to the city council. Okay.
Joanna?
No, I commit to go see Pumpkin Ridge this next couple weeks, so I talked about that and didn't follow through, but I'm gonna go see him.
Okay.
That's good.
work on
'Cause I talked a
North
little-
Plain tea time.
Yeah, I talked a little bit to Bill about that, because we did have a good working relationship with them prior to COVID, and then we thought maybe they got some new ownership, possibly new management.
Yeah.
And between that and COVID, we kind of, you know,
The live tournament didn't go well, so since then, we've been trying to.
We've got somebody new, we'll go, wow.
We were at the chamber meeting.
Doesn't hurt to talk about it.
that's right, yeah. It's good to have, I'm glad that you're offering to go start building that bridge back, because they are a good neighbor to work with. They, you know, before COVID, they let us have they did the fireworks up there for 4th of July. I think just 1 year.
Just 1 year.
That was
Um,
interesting.
Wasn't the other years because we weren't able to do that because of bad wind at the times?
No,
No, it was COVID was
Yeah.
part of the reason. And before that, we had them, we do them at the school.
well, we had
No,
it,
we had them at the,
Lakeview Farms.
Yeah.
No, we
Lakeview
had them at
Farm,
Lakeview.
I think it's before Brendel was there. But
Yeah, they were done.
anyway, we ran out of places. I mean, there's not a lot of places where the fire department will let you have an event like that, so.
Yeah.
We kind of lost out after that first year at Pumpkin Ridge.
they used to be at Nature's Needs
Yeah.
earlier.
Oh, that was before I
Yeah.
started working here.
Yeah,
and then Lakeview Farms was,
that was just 1 year.
yeah, that was the one, but that was for the, that wasn't for the 4th of July, that was
for
for
the
the,
150th.
yeah,
Oh, okay, yeah. But we just have run out of places that we can safely and legally have an event like that. Because we were just talking about, you know, so we have the ice cream social, that's the one big event in June. We have the garlic festival in August. I personally would love to see the 4th of July event get built up to something a lot bigger, and it could be the music thing and whatever for July. But without fireworks, it's hard to keep people
yeah,
around.
Yeah.
Sure.
that's where you have to have it in the afternoon when it's
Yeah,
100 degrees.
yeah, so,
Yes.
But that's all I have.
Abby?
Nope, I'm good.
Sherry? Don't have anything. Does any of our exhibition?
Ex officio.
Yep, that's the word.
Well, yeah, no, I think despite, I'm sure there's always gonna be, some negative criticism. I think the dog park was a good move. It was a good allocation of a resource that we otherwise cannot touch from the standpoint of mitigating the land there. It's just out of the question from a financial standpoint. So, you know, repurposing that park, I think makes sense. Can we enhance it some more? I'm sure we can. I mean, it sounds like there's some folks that might have some ideas about that. But as far as the parks board goes, yeah, both Patty and Sherry were in attendance. And I emceed it because I'm the president of the chamber. You know, I thought it was well attended, even it being warm, and there were a lot of dogs there. So, yeah, I just think it's a good additional alternative for people and their pets, and we'll hopefully get to have a much bigger dog park someday. But back to the piece on I would encourage you to drill into the bylaws. I mean, it sounds like you've got some direction, but I personally would like to see a report on a quarterly basis to the council. And it doesn't need to be anything more than a list of bullet points, because we can read the minutes, but you can imagine we have like 7 committees. It can be pretty exhausting. So getting a brief report is it's a pretty easy thing to keep in good communication. And that informs the folks on the council what's kind of the highlights of what's going on. Not the minutia, we're not necessarily going to be interested in that, but so I would encourage that. And I think Bill mentioned a recommendation for a timeline. I think January 1 by then would be good. Other than that, I don't have too much else. I think as far as the growth and what we can do with recreation programs as we grow, I think there's a lot of, I think there's a lot of opportunity there that I know that you're starting to explore. At least that's what I understand.
Next in line.
Oh, that's you, Bill.
I guess the other thing I would say is, we've had to back burner it a little while, but I need to work with, interim city manager, Rob Drake and Dustin. We need to reignite the conversation and, about all of the additional maintenance costs for the additional parks we have and how to pay for that. You know, we can have that conversation a bit, but North Plains, you know, I say this a lot, North Plains has one of the lowest, absolute lowest property tax rates, city property tax rates in the county. And that creates funding challenges for everything, really. And since people like to feel safe every day, a little more than they use parks on a daily basis, we kind of have to prioritize public safety and police. And then after that, parks and other things kind of ends up being something we look into as a matter of priorities, council does. And so, you know, we're growing and we have to figure out how to pay for different maintenance and other things. And so that'll be a conversation coming up in the next few months, but we'll kickstart that back up again. That was something we had almost kind of got to the 5-yard line in process before Andy left. So we need to kind of reboot that. So that'll be coming.
Can I ask a quick question?
I'll allow it.
Thank you. Do you know how many rooftops we have in town?
We have between 12 and 1,300 at this point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lori? I'm sorry.
No, next meeting's the 14th, sorry.
No, I'm sorry, I don't know your name at the end.
No, Rowan.
Rowan. I just didn't know.
This is Rowan, the assistant planner.
Hi.
She was, prior to that, a month ago, she was our rare volunteer.
Yes, I've heard that your name mentioned many times. Anything to add?
Nothing else.
Okay. Well, I don't have anything either. Hopefully we can get through the bylaws all good. So the time is 7:18. I think it's a good time to close the meeting.